Welcome again to Woman Enough for Marriage. My name is Wumi Ajayi. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're well and I hope the family are well as well. In my last two videos, I started a two-part series talking to the husbands and talking to the wives. And where I'm just basically looking at specific instructions for husbands and specific instructions for wives and the things that the Bible talked about generally about marriage. And it's with the hope that when we look at these things and remind ourselves, it will help us to enjoy our marriages better. In the first part for the husbands, I talked about, how to love your wife as Christ loved the church, as your own body, how to show love and affection practically to, to your wives. In this part two, I'll be looking at a few other things as well that I'm hoping will help husbands to relate better to their wives. So I'll be starting by looking at a verse of scripture in 1 Peter 3:7, and I'll be reading it in the Amplified Version. It says, "In the same way, you husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, with great gentleness and tact, and with an intelligent regard for the marriage relationship, as with someone physically weaker, since she is a woman. Show her honor and respect as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered or ineffective." So let's take it bit by bit. The first part says, live with your wives in an understanding way, with great gentleness and tact, and with an intelligent regard for the marriage relationship. So treating someone with understanding is to be sympathetically aware of their feelings, to be tolerant of them, and to be forgiving. Now, as husbands, these are the questions that you should be asking yourself. Am I aware of my wife's feelings? Am I sympathetic with her feelings? Or do I just dismiss her feelings? Do I disregard her feelings? Am I tolerant of her, or do I get frustrated easily with her? Am I forgiving of her? Am I quick to forgive her when she offends me? It talks about having an intelligent regard for the married relationship. Am I wise? Am I intelligent? Do I have, a wise regard, an intelligent regard for my relationship with my wife? Am I tactful? Am I gentle in the way I relate with my wife? The Bible talks about, the fear of God as the beginning of wisdom. I always, say that a man that has the fear of God is a wise man. Is an intelligent man, and is likely to have a good regard, a special regard, a wise regard, an intelligent regard for the married relationship, and treat it as it should be treated, and treat his wife well, and put effort into making the married relationship work. Now, the second part talks about the woman as the weaker vessel. Sometimes, the feminists don't want to hear this as well. Like the woman is not the weaker vessel. But the Bible is talking about the physical weakness, because men are typically stronger than women. Yes, I appreciate the fact that some women can be stronger than men depending on their build and, exercise and all that. But the fact is that generally men are physically stronger than women. And in writing this, Peter was challenging the misogyny of that time, where domestic abuse against women was seen as a norm, and he was warning men not to throw their weight around, not to use their physical dominance to take advantage of their wives. And unfortunately, we see that in this day and age, sometimes you still see men that use their physical dominance to take advantage of their wives, domestic abuse, physical abuse. It's totally unacceptable. The society frowns at it. The Bible frowns at it. And it's not something that should be heard in a Christian home. It's totally unacceptable for a man to raise his hands against his wife. And this is not to say that, men don't suffer physical abuse from women. That's not the topic for today. But I know that it happens. I know it's real. But one of the reasons why it's almost like it's a shameful thing, why men don't talk about it, I also believe is because, it's generally saying that men should be stronger than women. Now, being a weaker vessel does not make the woman less intelligent or inferior, because the latter part of that verse says, show her honor and respect as a fellow heir of the grace of life. So the woman is equally as important as the man. It's not a reason to see the woman as inferior. It's not a reason to treat her as inferior, as of, less value to the man. And as imitators of Christ, a godly man should treat his wife with tenderness, with consideration, with compassion, with tolerance, with empathy, and like I said, with the fear of God. Because when a man fears God, he will treat his wife well. And part of relating with understanding to the wife is also appreciating the difference between a man and a woman. You didn't marry another man, you married a woman. Women are wired differently. Hopefully, in another video, I might look at the difference between a man and a woman. And, sometimes this is all that we need, the knowledge that we need that will set us free. Some men complain about their wives when the woman is just being a woman. But if a man lacks understanding of how a woman is wired, the tendencies are that he will be expecting her to be acting like a man. And if you're a man that is, you're struggling to understand your wife, maybe you just cannot understand your wife, it won't hurt to actually look into the differences between a man and a woman. There are so many books out there that will tell you how men are wired, the peculiarity in the way men are wired and the way women are wired. And that enlightenment, might be what you need to liberate you and to improve your marriage and your relationship with your wife. And the latter part, which I think all men should take note of, is it says that your prayers will not be hindered or ineffective. So basically, there is a direct correlation between how you relate to your wife and having your prayers answered. And it means that treating your wife with understanding pleases God. And it's the condition to be fulfilled for you to enjoy the favor that a man that finds a wife obtains from God. And unfortunately, we see situations where men are they can be so spiritual. They do all the spiritual activities. They go to church all night, prayer meetings, and all that. But they are not relating with their wives with understanding. As far as I'm concerned, that first comes first. That's like your first spiritual responsibility, to treat your wife well. Our marriages and our relationship with our spouses, it goes for the women as well, takes priority above every other thing that we do, whether we give, whether we serve, whatever we do. It's important that we take our home and our marriage relationships as priority. We will be accountable to God because our marriages are our first ministry. Now I want to talk about leadership. Ephesians 5:23 makes it clear. It says, for a husband is the head of his wife, as Christ is the head of the church. He is the savior of his body, the church. Good leadership, wherever we find ourselves, whether in the home setting, work setting, church setting, wherever. Good leadership is important for every member of that family, of that workplace, of that church to flourish. And as a man, a man has that responsibility to lead the home. The Bible makes it clear. And like I said in my video, the part one for wives, God is a God of order. And he has made it clear that as far as the family is concerned, as far as the home is concerned, he has made the man the head. Now, as a man, as a single man, 1 minute you're a single man in love, all you know that is you just want to get married, and the next minute you've become the head of a family. before you know it, children have come, and then you're expected to lead. You've had no practice, but the default that most men have into leadership, the leadership style that they choose to follow, is what they know or what they've learned, maybe from their parents or from people that are married around them. But the leadership style that a man adopts in leading his wife or leading his family may not necessarily be the right one. There are some societies that says men are superior, and those societies tend to favor the autocratic or the authoritarian leadership, where the man calls the shot. It's do as I say because I am the boss in this marriage. It's an oppressive style of leadership that tries to force submission. There are so many other leadership styles, but the one I want to concentrate on is the servant leadership, which is the model that Jesus gave us. And even in the world of business, servant leadership is recommended. A servant leader serves. A servant leader does not wait for the people that he is leading to come and serve him. He serves them. A servant leader leads by example. A servant leader is a role model for the people that he is leading. When we look at Jesus, Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. And in those days, that is the lowest job for the lowest of servants. In other words, for Jesus, nothing was beneath him. And for a servant leader, nothing is beneath them. When we look at the way, especially, the African culture, everybody else serves the man. The man does not serve. Everybody else serves the man. But that's why we need to be asking ourselves, the way I'm leading as a man, the way you're leading your home, what style are you following? What style are you adopting? Sometimes we adopt a style that suits us best, like the African culture that basically feels that everybody else serves the man because the man is the boss, the man is the head. Of course, that serves the selfishness of the man. It serves the ego of the man. So it's easy to just adopt that. Yes, I'm the head. Yes, I'm expected to be served. But we need to be asking ourselves as Christian men, what style of leadership have I adopted? Jesus taught his disciples that whoever wants to be great in his kingdom must learn to be a servant. And it's no different in marriage. As the leader, you should be leading by example, a servant leader. Being the head is not about lording it over the woman or lording it over the rest of the family. And also, if we look at the fact that Christ is the head of the church, yes, the man is the head of the wife, but Christ is the head of the man. And so, as a man, the question you should be asking yourself is Christ truly your head? We talked about God ordained orders that must be followed for us to enjoy marriage and to avoid disorder. So, if as a man, you are not submitting yourself to Christ, on what basis do you expect your wife to submit to you? And that's why we see men that are trying to force submission. I talked about submission, in my part one video for wives, what submission is and what submission is not. If you make Christ your head and you submit to him, loving your wife and relating to your wife will be easier, no matter how difficult or unlovable you think your wife is. When we imitate Christ, it makes life easier. When we imitate Christ's style of leadership. I'm talking about submission. What does submission mean to you as a man? What does your wife submitting to you? What does that mean to you? And what is it based on? Because, like I said in that video, sometimes we base our definition and our expectation on what the society has dictated or what the society is dictating. But as Christians, we should check ourselves. How am I defining submission? What does submission mean to me? What is it based on? Is it based on what the Bible defines submission to be? Or is it based on an oppressive culture that expects the wife to be, like a mindless servant that just obey, mindless obedience, do as I say, you are doing it because I say so, the husband calling the shots? Is that what your definition of submission is based on? And what about submitting to one another in reference to God, in the fear of God? As a man, are you prepared to submit to your wife in the same way that you're expecting her to submit to you? These are the questions that men, husbands, should be asking themselves. Now, I want to talk about your needs as a man. People have looked at, what men needs, and ranking on top on the needs of men, husbands in marriage, is the need for respect and sexual fulfillment. And those are the two that I'll be talking about really. And again, the question is, what does respect mean to you? If a man is saying my wife does not respect me, what does respect mean to you? What do you mean by that? I'm all for a man being treated as the king in his home, but as long as he treats the wife as the queen, not as the king's servant. And sometimes ego comes in into how we define respect. That's why men need to be asking themselves, what is my definition? What is the way I'm expecting my wife to respect? What is it based on? Is it to feed my ego? Is it because it makes me feel better? Personal insecurities comes in. You can't, if a man has personal insecurities, your wife can't make that go away. So insisting that your wife do this, do that to make you feel better is not the way to go. A man that has personal insecurities has to deal with those insecurities. First of all, what is it about? Are you feeling insecure because of your abilities or your financial situation, or because of the way you've been brought up, or because of not having a job, or what? And if you're not honest with yourself as a man to acknowledge that, yes, maybe I do have some personal insecurities that I need to deal with, it will be easier to make it about your wife. She does not respect me. What is she not doing? And what should she be doing? And again, it's important that a man have a honest discussion with his wife. If you feel that your wife is not respecting you, and you've actually, examined yourself, you've realized that no, it's not because of my ego, it's not because of her personal insecurities. It could be that your wife is actually not respecting you. Then you should be sitting down with her and discussing these things. The other one is sexual fulfillment. I can tell you that when a man learns to give love and affection, I talked about love and affection in my part 1 video for husbands. When a man learns to give love and affection to his wife consistently, not only when you want to have sex, because women are not daft, they know. I'm not saying, yeah, you can heighten the love and affection that you give to your wife when you want sex, but it's not something that should be limited to that. Sex will come easy when you've learned to give love and affection consistently to your wife. A woman that feels loved and cared for is more likely to willingly give herself to the man. We know that, I've done a series of videos on sex as well. So if you want to refer to them, please do. We do know that naturally, a man's libido is higher than that of a woman. So, yes, a man is likely to want sex more than the woman does. So it's important that the man knows how to give love and affection to his wife on a consistent basis. Now, concluding, I want to read Proverbs 18:23 that I alluded to earlier on. It says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Another translation says, he who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord. And if we look at the First Peter 3:7 that I started with, and we add this to it, then we can almost conclude that your wife is a source of favor for you. It's something that is continuous. If you treat your wife well, your prayer will not be hindered, your prayer will be answered. You will continue to find favor before God. Now, the question is, how are you treating your source of favor? I've seen a few men, that will tell you that they love their children, but they treat their wives bad. As a man, the best thing that you can do for your children to show that you love them is by showing love to your wife, who is their mother. Let the children know that your wife, their mom, is precious to you. Honor her and respect her. Not only will it improve their self worth, especially for the girls, the boys will also learn how to treat their women right. Let's not forget that as parents, we are the first teachers for our children when it comes to marriage, because they are watching, they are seeing, they're looking at, at how you and your wife are relating with each other, how you're treating your wife. And another question I like to ask men is the way you are treating your wife. Would you like your daughters to be treated that way by their husbands? Because I know oftentimes men have a soft spot for their girls, but we need to be thinking. Men need to think the way I'm treating my wife. If my daughter marries in how many years time, and her husband is treating her the same way, will I be happy as a father? And lastly, can your daughters confidently say that they want a man like their dad? I think this is something that every man should aspire to. For your daughter to be able to look at you and say, wow, if my husband treats me the way you treat mom, then I'm made up, I'm settled. That is what I want. I want a man like my dad. That should be something that every man should aspire to. Thank you so much for joining me. I will be stopping here. I hope you've been blessed. Remember, like I always say, marriage is designed by God for us to enjoy. It's not something that we should merely endure. And by learning and unlearning and relearning, I hope and I trust that our marriages will be better and we'll enjoy them much better. God bless you and see you in my next video.